On.
Hello, government kiddos. Today we are going to recap how a bill becomes a law. Unfortunately for you, I probably won't be breaking into song, um, but if you are thinking about it right now, of course, that song is probably going to be stuck in your head as we are going through it. But just recap how a bill becomes a law. Of course, you probably already know most of this, but let's recap the steps just so you can have this for your notes and going forward, your reaction papers. So remember, the first step in the process is that a bill has to be introduced. It can only be written by a member of the House or the Senate. It cannot be written by a Supreme Court justice. It cannot be written by the president. The president does not have the ability to write legislation. Fun fact, even though the vice president is technically the president of the Senate, he does not also have the ability to write bills. And then remember just that the HR means that the bill originated in the House, and the S means that the bill originated in the Senate. Once a bill is introduced, of course, it goes to committee. And these are standing committees. These are not select committees. These are standing committees. So these are permanent committees that deal with the issue of the bill. Remember, tax bills would go to a budget committee and so forth and so on. The bill has to pass committee in order to be eligible for debate. And if you remember from class, I told you that only about 10% of bills make it out of committee. So 9 out of every 10 bills that are written never, ever make it out of committee, never, ever get debated. Once a bill makes it out of committee, though, it is eligible for debate. If you remember, in the House, only a speaker can bring a bill up for debate. So if a speaker does not put it on the agenda, it does not get debated. The speaker can also say how long the bill is going to be debated, if they're going to devote several hours, several minutes, several days. And the speaker can also determine how much time people get in the debate so that it goes from bill to bill. In the Senate, any bill can be debated as long as there is unanimous consent. Remember, unanimous means that everyone has to agree, and consent is basically permission. Again, you don't have to get everyone to say yes, they are voting, but you cannot have anyone object. Don't forget that many bills either have a 30 or 60-day time limit. So if a bill is debated and its 30 or 60 days run out, you do not get to extend the time. You do not get a do-over. That bill is just dead. Once a bill is debated, there can be a motion to vote. At any time during the debate process before the vote, that bill can be amended. And of course, when you add things to a bill that are not related, these are riders, and they're also called pork barrel legislation. So remember, pork barrel legislation is just money that is thrown into the bill that is not related to what the bill is about. A rider is just basically an addition or money that goes along with the bill. And of course, if you get several pork barrel legislation additions or riders, then we call that a Christmas tree bill. A Christmas tree bill basically because there is a gift for just about everyone. And again, in order for a bill to pass it, you just need a majority. So in the House of Representatives, that's 218. In the Senate, that is 51. So if your bill is lucky enough to be passed in either the House or the Senate, then of course it goes to the opposite chamber. And again, when it goes to the opposite chamber, it goes to the opposite chamber's committee. And again, this is a standing committee that deals with the same issue. The House and the Senate don't exactly have the same standing committees, but they have many similar ones that deal with similar issues. Just remember that even though your bill might make it out of one chamber, it can still actually die in committee, and it can actually still be ignored by the Speaker of the House, or can be voted down in the Senate. Most bills, though, if they pass the House or the Senate, they will probably make it out of committee just because the ideas are sound and there is some support behind them if they've already passed either the House or the Senate. The tricky thing here, though, is, of course, the bill has to pass in original format. So that means that it has to have the exact same wording in the House and the Senate before it goes on to the president. So if one makes a change, it goes back to the other. So these can be riders that can be added. These can be typos, or, these can just be things that one chamber doesn't agree on. If there is a impasse, of course, they can form a joint committee to work out the differences, or, senators and House members are allowed to talk to each other outside of the chambers and kind of work deals out. But again, your bill has to pass the exact same wording in both the House and the Senate in order to be moved on to the next step. Again, many bills get caught up here in the 30 to 60 days because if there's a lot of going back and forth between the House and the Senate, then that bill dies. If the bill passes in both the House and the Senate in the exact same wording, it goes to the president. And again, the president has many options at this point. Of course, if the president signs the bill, it becomes the law. There is confetti. There is a party. There's probably a little bit of Sprite and pizza there as well. And of course, remember, like we talked in class, the president uses a different pen for each letter of their name, and they either give those pens away or they auction them off for charity. So you can say, I own a pen that signed the Affordable Health Care Act. The president, though, cannot sign the bill. And again, the president can then veto, which, of course, the president has to veto the entire bill. They can't just take out a specific portion. They have to, if they don't agree with something in the bill, they have to get rid of the entire bill. Again, these are overridable. So sometimes the president just doesn't do that. Also, history has shown that the more presidents use the veto, the more hostile the House and the Senate get. And if you think about it, they kind of have to work together. So the president might not always just outright veto a bill. And of course, the higher the presidential approval rating, the more likely they are going to veto because they have kind of a popularity with the people. If the president doesn't want to veto the bill, then he does nothing. Okay? So if the president does nothing and Congress is in session, that bill becomes a law after 10 days anyway. And of course, you might do this if you are working on a bill that is from the opposite party and you agree with the bill, or maybe you just got too busy playing golf and tweeting. The president, though, can also use what is called a pocket veto, and it's not when the president takes the bill and shoves it in his pocket. It's basically ignoring the bill while Congress is out of session. The good thing or the advantage to a pocket veto is that if Congress is not in session, that bill dies and Congress cannot override the veto once they come back into session. So a lot of times Congress will wait on these bills until they go to the next session just to protect the president from using the pocket veto. If the bill is vetoed, Congress does have the option to either let it die, we fought the good fight, or they can override the president. Again, you need 2/3 or 66.6%. But that is both the House and the Senate. They both have to agree to override. And of course, that is extremely rare because right now there are not 291 House members from either party, and there are not 67 senators. The House for the Representatives, the Republicans control about 252 seats in the House, and they control about 54 seats in the Senate. So that is not enough for an override. So you're going to have to get members from the other party to agree to that. Of course, Barack Obama famously was only overridden once. And your approval rating also will determine whether or not you're going to get overridden. So the more popular the president is, the less likely they're going to be overridden. Kind of in the opposite, the less popular a president is, the more likely they are going to be overridden. Of course, that's kind of how a bill becomes a law. Not as fun as the Schoolhouse Rock video, but still, I hope this finds you well. Please make sure you look over these slides again, and of course, you may use these for your reaction papers.